Hey everyone, I'm Monica Clavijo, and welcome back to another episode of the Bear Experiment podcast. Today's conversation is not comfortable, it's not trendy, and it's definitely not corporate approved. We're talking about ageism, we're talking about HR, we're talking about layoffs, PIPs, severance agreements, return to office mandates, and the quiet replacement of experienced professionals with younger, cheaper labor, all while companies are saying, we are family. If you're over the age of 40 and suddenly feel invisible, if you've been placed on a PIP that feels like a setup, if you were hired remote and they're now forcing you to go back to the office, if you're training someone younger who somehow now has your title, well, this episode is for you. Corporate America is shifting and fast. AI is accelerating change. Gen Z is entering the workforce with different expectations. And experienced professionals are being told to adapt while quietly being pushed out. But here's the truth: experience is not obsolete, and you're not obsolete. Today, we're joined by an advocate who has lived the system from the inside. She's experienced age discrimination firsthand and built a platform called the Unobsolete to help professionals understand their rights, protect themselves, negotiate strategically, and stop making emotional decisions in high stakes corporate moments. We're going to talk about how to fight the PIP the right way, what not to say to HR, why you should never sign a severance immediately if you're over the age of 40, what clauses can sabotage your job search, why ghost job postings exists, how AI is affecting older applicants, and what corporate language really means when they say restructuring. This is not about being better. This is about being informed. This is about being strategic. If you've ever felt blindsided by corporate decisions, today you're going to walk away a lot sharper. I want to thank you all for taking the time to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so that you never miss an amazing episode with all of the amazing guests that continue to come onto our show, sharing their valuable information to help us all elevate. Learn how to roll with the punches, because God knows in today's society, it's brutal out there. So now let's dive in. If you love yoga, fitness, or working out at home, but your knees, back, and joints don't love it back, listen up. The folding mat isn't just another yoga mat. It's the only yoga and fitness mat on the market right now designed with a patented folded seams that allows the mat to fold over and double the cushion exactly where your body needs it the most. That means more comfort, more support, and serious protection from injury, especially your joints, spine, wrists, and knees. Whether you're flowing through yoga, holding planks, stretching, or powering through a workout, the folding mat adapts to you. You're not forced to adjust your body to the mat adjusts to your body. And here's the game changer. The folding mat features built-in guidelines and hand and foot placement sections, so you're always aligned correctly. Perfect posture, perfect positioning every single time. That means safer workouts, better form, and stronger results, whether you're a beginner or a seasoned pro. One mat, multiple positions, maximum comfort. Upgrade the way you move, train, and protect your body with the folding mat. Use promo code MONICA at checkout for a 10% discount. That's promo code MONICA, because your body deserves better support. All righty, and we are live. Thank you so much, Jen, for taking your afternoon to speak with us here on the Bear Experiment podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Real relevant information that you have on your content. Your advocacy is super important. Ageism is a real thing in corporate America today. I don't think that enough people are talking about what's happening today with corporate America, the shifts that are happening, HR, Gen Z coming into the workplace, and most importantly, AI, right? Like, what's going to happen with AI? Are we going to be left without work within the next 5-10 years? Because that's that's pretty much the direction that everything is headed in, automation. So, why don't we start with with Jen and what happened to you in corporate America that made you build the Unobsolete.
Okay, gosh. It was kind of a slow burn for me. And I have to be honest, corporate America and I have never really gotten along. I mean, I've always worked in corporate America as a tech consultant and different consultants over the years, but I've always kind of had a problem with the control aspect of corporate America. So, what really happened to me, the final straw that happened to me, was I was sitting in a meeting and. I had been called into a meeting blindly, and I was called in with HR and my 30 something year old boss, who I had been working with for a while, we didn't see eye to eye for a long time. She was a very controlling type of boss, and I am not a person. Coming from Gen X, I guess maybe it's not even a generational thing, but I am not a person that works well when someone is micromanaging me and sitting on top of my head. I actually just freeze when that happens. So I got called into a meeting, kind of blindsided about it because I had been doing my job no problem, and I'd just gotten promoted and all these crazy things. And I just got called in, and they started making all these strange accusations. There were accusations about my door usage. There were accusations that I had, said things that I shouldn't have said, being in a leadership role, and it would basically just it was just making things up. There was nothing, and I'm sure that I was not a perfect employee. I'm never going to say that I was. But what they were doing in that meeting was literally just deciding, and had decided many days before, that they just didn't want me around anymore. And so I walked out of that meeting blindsided because none of it really was true. None of it had actually happened.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of this place where it started for me. It was like, I didn't like the way I was treated. I didn't like the aftermath of what happened to me in that situation and how it really paralyzed me for a long period of time. So that's kind of where it started for me.
Well, at what point during all of this taking place do you realize that this wasn't just business at that point, that it was a systematic plan that they have in place?
Yeah, it took me a minute because, like I said, I was blindsided. So I remember walking out of that meeting and calling another person who had had the same thing happen to him maybe a month before. So it was clearly something that they were doing to a lot of people, and it ended up being something that they did to a lot of people. But when it hit me was when I actually got home that evening and um, sat down with, I remember just sitting on the couch and just wondering, oh my gosh, what just happened to me? And
Right.
my husband actually said something really profound to me. He's like, well, you didn't actually do anything here. And so in that moment, it was like, it all just became so clear to me that it was just a setup. It was all a setup. And it was a game. And it just became crystal clear in that moment that it was just a game that they were playing.
So what does that do to Jen at that point, where kind of like every I starts, dotting and T crossing, that you say to yourself, okay, I'm gonna fight this. I'm not gonna let them do this to me.
Yeah, that took a minute too. So at first, I was shaking. I remember shaking and walking out of there and feeling, oh my gosh, that's just not, there's got to, the first thing I do is I look internally and I say, okay, what did I do wrong? That was just kind of the way I was raised. So when I couldn't find anything that was specific there, I just kind of went through, I guess you'd say you go through the grieving process. I
Yeah.
went quickly through it. And my personality says, nope, you're not going to do that to me. I'm going to fight this. So it was not just me, it was two or three other people that it happened to in the organization that I watched their experience as well. And it was just something that um, I couldn't stand for anymore. So I said, I'm going to fight this. And so I started fighting it at that time, but that was not the time when I just decided I'm never going back to corporate America. So it was a gradual change for me.
Yeah, corporate America is definitely not what it used to be before, right? People get a great job. They were able to fulfill their family obligations. They were able to receive a pension.
Mhm.
They get the nice gold watch after 40 years and retirement, and now they're happy and living in bliss. That's not what's happening today. What are people in their 40s and 50s not seeing coming in corporate life that you do?
I think it's funny. The change that's happened in corporate America has been subtle, but it has been in many ways it's been subtle because most of us are, we're spending all our time working and doing our jobs and things of that nature, and so we're not seeing it. But what's happened with corporate America is it's become a machine of greed and profit and ROI. So they will use anything in corporate America now to get rid of people and change the bottom line for their company. And I
Correct.
think it's indicative of what's happening in society today. You see it in so many ways, but you see it in corporate America in the way that people are expendable. It's almost like taking us back to the Industrial Revolution when people were expendable and there were all those laws that had to go into place to protect people and all of that. We're at that same crossroads again when it comes to ageism and it comes to, all the different unprotected classes. People do not see it coming because they still have in their head that corporate America is going to save me. I'm going to be okay because I have a job, because that's what we've thought for so long. And the truth is, there's no loyalty there. You owe them none, and they're not going to give you any.
That's right. That's right. And it's the monopolization that's happening also in the marketplace today. Companies are just, getting bigger and larger and larger and larger, and it gets to a point that they don't even give the opportunity anymore to, Monica who wants to open up a bakery. Like, how do I compete at that point with this global company? I can't. It's impossible. It's impossible for that to happen.
It is. It is. It's sad. But people don't see it coming, and then they're lost when it does happen and they have
I
no
think
plan.
people do see it coming. I think that we're already at a point where it's happening. People just don't know how to fight it, right? Or how to discuss it. This is an important conversation to be had, right? People are
Right.
afraid to have this conversation. Oh, what if HR hears that I'm trying to find out information, that I'm speaking to an attorney? All of a sudden now my job can all of a sudden be jeopardized, right? Or be they can look at me and now, possibly hire somebody younger than me because, I'm problematic because I'm older now, right? Like these are all things that go through everyone's mind, but at the end, in the end, it's a legal process that needs to take place, and we all need to be better informed, better educated, so that when this does happen, because it will happen, it's the inevitable. It
Yeah.
will happen in the majority of all corporate jobs, right? So, with that being said, what percent of the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission complaints, are based on age discrimination, and why don't more people file?
More people don't file. I don't know the exact number of age discrimination versus the protected class, but I can tell you we had $800 billion in lawsuits last year in payouts. So quite a bit when it comes to the protected classes and ageism. More people don't file because ageism is the worst one to prove. We have, a series of protected classes. A lot of them get a lot more attention than the ageism one. So ageism is subtle. You can hide ageism. And so ageism in the workplace can be, it can be just seen as, oh no, that's just the way it is, or we're laying off everybody. But when you go in and you look at, when a company says we're laying off across the board, well, you really need to get those metrics, and you have a legal right to them. So when someone has a mass layoff, they have a legal right to ask for those metrics
Right.
of who's being laid off. And so people don't go in and get those metrics, and they don't necessarily, if you don't have the documentation. And I'm going to be really honest about this, even if you do have the documentation with ageism, it is very difficult to prove. So,
At what age does ageism begin?
well,
Were
I would
you
say 40.
okay?
40, I think. And it really depends. I worked in tech, and tech is a brutal industry for age. And
Yes.
so definitely at 40 for me, I started feeling it. And other places, you'll find it's different in other different verticals. But for me, ageism really started at 40.
Yeah, I think, yeah, like I said, I think that it's happening more and more across the board, and they're getting cheaper, younger, cheaper, right? Labor to come in and do the same work. And it's like, hey, listen, either you do it for this amount of money, or we're going to find somebody else that will, right?
Right.
And again, it's about the bottom line that they have always for their company. With that being said, there's a lot of return to office mandates that are taking place now after COVID, and and a lot of companies are reinforcing that, and a lot of people were hired during this period where it was remote work and or hybrid work, and now that's not the case. So why are there so many companies now all of a sudden starting this mandate with so many employees, when it's been proven that sometimes we're even more effective when we're in the comfort of our own home. We don't have the pressures of having to deal with traffic or getting dressed and commuting and eating out, right? Like there's so we're able to save so much more money and therefore be so much better employees for the company at that point. So why are they mandating this for us to have to go back into the office now?
There's a lot of reasons. Some companies are mandating it because they have high real estate costs. Now, that's not very many. I'm going to be honest, because they can sell those buildings and different things happen with that. Some are mandating it because they're using it as a way to weed out employees. So they know that if they're going to bring you into the office or request that you come in and you've been a remote worker, that if they try to enforce that, or they do enforce that, that you'll probably most likely quit, or that's what they're hoping that you'll do. Other companies are using it as a control factor. Maybe they were sold. A lot of companies have been acquired by different companies. And so, if you worked for one company that was acquired by another company, they will oftentimes, it's a control factor because they don't necessarily know how those employees worked in the first place, and everything's changing. So that's another reason. And then sometimes it's just a change of the guard. So you'll have like a CEO that wants people to come in, and they feel
Right.
that very strongly, that they're an older school type of mentality in the way that they work. And so that they'll require employees to come back in. But it is proven by Stanford and Harvard, all the studies, that we all work, not all of us work better from home, but the majority of
The
us do. We
majority,
are
the
protected.
majority do, absolutely. You're always going to have your slackers here and there working remote. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So, and then at what point, what leverage does the employee have if you were hired while it was a work from home mandate at the time, and that conversation was never had? Listen, there could be a possibility that within the next year or two, once everything calms down, you will have to come into the office 3, 4, 5 days a week. What leverage do you have there then legally?
Legally, if you were hired as a remote worker, you do have legal leverage. Now, it depends on what your contract says and how it was
Right. What you
put
signed
together.
in the beginning. Right.
Right. But you do have leverage. If you're caring for an elderly parent, or you're caring for a family member, things of that nature, and you've got extenuating circumstances, and those were all defined when you took that job, yes, hire an attorney, because you do have legal leverage. The problem is that a lot of people don't act on that, and they don't gather the documentation. And when they talk to a lawyer, particularly in any one of these situations, they're not prepared. And employment lawyers today want it organized, and they want to know in 15 minutes if they're going to represent you or not. So when you talk to them, you have to have all your documentation and your ducks in a row.
Right.
But you
Right.
do have those protections if you were hired that way, though.
Uh, when they say culture fit, what are they really signaling out at that point?
That you're too old most of the time. So most of the time when they say culture fit, it's an age thing.
Okay.
But it can be something completely different. It just, culture fit has become this term that everybody uses. So it's changed and used for many things. But for the most part, when you're talking to a 40 plus employee, and it's really crazy that it's 40 plus, but when you're talking to somebody that says culture fit and you're sitting across the table from them, that really is an age thing. We don't think that you're going to come into the office and go to the office parties, and you're not going to, you're probably going to know better some of the stuff that we pull in this office, and you're not going to participate in the happy hours and all of those things. That's the culture fit that they're talking about. And the other thing that could be included in there is, look, your culture fit is just simply that you're going to cost me more than I want to pay, and I just need a body in a
Yeah.
seat.
I think that that's what it entails a lot of the times, right? It's about a paycheck and how much they're willing to pay that person because, retrospectively looking inward at it, 40 is not really old in today's society, in today's world, right? Like it's
Right.
not, So what is it really about? Okay, now you're getting somebody straight out of college that has certain knowledge, digital knowledge, technical knowledge, right? That they can probably get them for half the pay that they're paying the 40 with experience, right? I think
Right.
that that's really what it's falling down to at this point. Let's talk a little bit about corporate code language because we hear this a lot. And I think a lot of it is self evident. But, what does we're family here really mean?
We're family here really means we're going to work you to death. So,
And you hear that one
um,
all the time, right?
we're family here means we're going to work you to death. You need to be here on weekends. You need to be here at night because we are all family and we are loyal to one another.
Mm-hmm.
That is really what we're family here means. That's a term that I would run from as fast as I possibly could because um, that is a company that is saying by saying we're family, they're basically saying we own you.
Right, right.
Yeah.
What about restructuring, realignment, performance concerns? What does that usually signal out?
When they're saying restructuring, realigning, they're trying to get rid of the extra money that they're having to pay, and they're not
Mhm.
meeting their financial goals. So by not meeting their financial goals, they're going to have to cut the higher paid employees, and those are usually the older ones. They want to get rid of the people that are causing their insurance to go up. They want to get rid of
Right.
the people that are getting paid the high salaries, the ones that have to take extra time off that actually use their PTO. They don't want, if there is even such a thing as PTO anymore, they don't want to have those people on the payroll. So they would prefer when they say restructuring and we're moving in a different direction, that's basically what they're saying. We're cutting the fat basically, and we
Yeah,
just want a body.
now a lot of corporate companies are not even offering PTO days like it was before, whatever, based on the amount of time that you work for the company, you have 10, 15 days. Now they're giving you unlimited PTO days because what they've noticed is that people don't take the time off because they look at you sideways when you do take off 2, 3 weeks because at that point it's like, was I not offered the unlimited PTO?
Right.
Because
Right.
this is the way the
Right.
company operates, and so many companies are doing that. And I know so many people that work for HR departments, and they've confirmed it. People just don't take the time off because before I have 10 days, I still have 5 left. Let me use it before the end of the year because if not, I'm going to lose it. That's not the way that it operates anymore, right?
Nope. And people, they don't have to pay it out anymore with unlimited.
Right, right. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's always going to favor them 100%. It's never going to be about the employee, which is interesting, right? Because a lot of employees think that HR is placed there to help the employee. No, HR
right.
is there 100% for the company.
Right. It is 100% for the company, and people don't recognize that. They think that it's there to protect them, and it is not. HR is there to protect the company and only the company.
Yeah. When they hire somebody younger, less experienced, and all of a sudden they ask you to train them and they have the exact same job title that you have, are there any legal ways that you can kind of go around that and say, no, I'm not going to do it and fight that?
Well, that's something that I went through also in my career. And that ended up with me leaving the company. But there are ways to, if you have your job description, okay, if you have your job description, and this is everybody, when they walk into corporate America today, should get a solid job description. And that job description, if it is ever updated, needs to be sent to you immediately. So if you get a job description the day you walk in and it has never changed from the next day, the next 10 years, that is a job description that you are working from, unless there's been some sort of formal change. And so if you have a job description that says you do these 10 things and those 10 things do not include training this person, you can push back and say, okay, where's the compensation for for taking care of this person? The problem is that legally, that's a sticky wicket, right? That's not something that anybody is going to probably pick up from an employment law perspective. So when you decide not to train that employee or that other person, then you're putting yourself into a situation where most likely you're either going to have to train that employee, make the decision that yes, I'm going to train this employee because I want this job. That's your first point if you decide you need that job. Or you can change that narrative and say, okay, I'm not doing this and I'm going to take the consequences that come with it. And the consequences that come with that could be being put on a PIP, being put into, having everything all of a sudden being documented. Everything that you do is wrong. And so when that happens, if you decide you're not going to train that employee or that other person and you're going to push back, then your documentation trail needs to start immediately. Now, what I would say to this is when someone gets into corporate America from day one, you need to start your documentation trail
Everything in
from the
writing.
day.
Everything in
Everything.
writing.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Everything in writing. And then you need to cover you need to do your CYA because if you don't, that's from day one. So everything that's ever sent,
So
every
what do you
performance
do? What do
review.
you recommend then for somebody to create a file on their computer and just start documenting anything that could be a discrepancy on their end or something that they see off, noting it with the time and the date and exactly what happened based on the description. And at that point, should any legal action take place, you have your file.
That's right. Sadly, that's my recommendation. Now, first, you have to check company policies as to what you can take from their computer. You can only ever in any company policy get a take what pertains to you. So that's not corporate secrets or any of that stuff. But generally speaking, anything that pertains to you, you can usually, now again, check with your lawyers, but
Right.
you can usually copy those. I would take screenshots. I would forward emails to my personal email that pertained to just me, nothing that had anything to do, like I said, with the corporation itself. And then I would document meeting notes, and I would send meetings emails back when someone pushes you on something that says, I don't need that, or I didn't know that about that. You didn't tell me that. Those are things that you have to have documented. And as you build that file, then you've got a lot bigger case. The problem is that most people don't build that file until
Of
it's too late
course.
and then they can't.
Right, right. So
Yeah.
that's why this is such valuable information. And again, this is not legal representation, legal help. This is just a person that's experienced, these fights, these arguments with the HR department at her company, and these are some of the tactics that have helped her and what she's learned along the way. Segueing into the PIP, which is performance improvement plans, right? We hear that
Mhm.
word and we cringe. When someone is placed on a PIP, is this usually something that's salvageable?
No. Well, let me say this. More and more, no. There was a time when performance improvement plans actually generally meant we want to help you improve your
Of
performance.
course.
But nowadays, it's more we're going to use this tool of an important performance improvement plan, set these crazy metrics that you can't possibly meet.
Right.
And then we're going to move the goalposts all the way through the process and make you absolutely go insane. And then eventually we're just going to force you out. So that's kind of what happens with a PIP today. So I would say that if you're put on a PIP, you need to take that first 72 hours very, very seriously. The first 72 hours are probably the most important because that's when it's all fresh in your mind. That's when you start your documentation trail. If you wait past that 72 hours, you're already behind the eight ball.
How
So
long do you have to reply to the PIP in writing for it to be legally acceptable?
Well, what you can do when you reply to a PIP, and this is probably the most important thing, is that they'll push you to sign that PIP right away. They'll push
Right.
you in that meeting. They'll have HR in that meeting. So you can sign that PIP that day. But what you want to put when you sign that PIP is, I acknowledge receipt of this PIP, not the contents thereof.
Oh,
So
okay.
so
Yes.
you put in there that you got it, but you're not acknowledging the
But
contents.
I haven't read or fully understood what's on here yet.
Right. And just, put that statement in there. I have a course that walks people through this, but that's what you want to say. You want to make sure that I acknowledge that I got it, but I am not acknowledging the receipt of what's in it.
Now, is there a time frame for acknowledgement?
Technically, no, there is not. They don't have to you don't have to acknowledge anything that's in that PIP if you don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
You could just say, yeah, I got it, but I'm not going to acknowledge that these are reasonable metrics. Now, what I would do immediately after I got that PIP is I would start my documentation trail and I would respond back to them. Okay, this is what I see in this PIP. I need clarification on who's going, what resources do I have available? What sources do I have that people will help me with this? And I need very clear specifics on what the metrics are to meet the goals of this PIP.
Right.
Because oftentimes the PIPs will just give you very vague information and there's no way to meet it. It can be, interpreted in multiple ways.
What is one sentence that someone can include in their written response that changes everything in a PIP?
Everything in a PIP. Let's see. I do not agree with these metrics,
Mm-hmm.
and I have not been given and unless they give you. So if you sign the PIP, okay, and you acknowledge that you got it, and then what I would do is send the email back that says I need clear metrics and I need goals and specific metrics, measurable metrics in here that I'm what I need to do to meet these
My
PIPs. So
my
let's
the, my new expectations and the new
yeah.
expectations that are required of me for my employment.
Yes. And then what I would put on there is I think in every meeting, there's not something specifically that I would put on the PIP itself. It's more about the way you handle the PIP itself. So it's more about documenting everything that happens, everything that moves. And in some states, it's very important to know this that you can record one-way conversations. So it depends on the state that you are in, but you can technically record in those states, and South Carolina being one of those states, where you can have a one-way conversation. So you can record them without them knowing that you're being recorded. Because the minute you go into anything that has to do with HR, you can bet that they're documenting and recording everything that you're doing.
Is there anything truly confidential with HR when you go and report something that you're uncomfortable with, for example, in the workplace? Is it truly confidential, or are they really sharing that information in your file and that's free for your management to go in and, any higher up in the company to really visit that information, or is it confidential?
That's a good question. It depends on the quality of your HR department, right? So if these are claims of sexual harassment, ageism, things of that nature, and anything that's in a protected class, no, that's not something that should go immediately into your file where people can access that. But HR at some point is going to have to document everything that's happening. So it's technically there. Now, who has access to that file is very fluid depending on the company. HR in certain companies is, the same guy that does accounting and does, he's got 17 different titles if it's a small
Correct.
company. So,
Right.
that's a fluid place. And then the storage of those files, there are guidelines and rules for storing those files, but that doesn't necessarily mean nobody's going in and checking to make sure that they are handled that way. So I would be very concerned about anything that if I was going into a conversation with HR that they are recording everything and you really don't know where that information's going.
Right. So yeah. So to keep that in mind, absolutely. I've never felt that it is confidential. I know that legally sometimes it has to be, but I know that it's not. What is just talk to us a little bit about how you discuss in your content the three email rule, where you should email yourself as soon as something takes place, followed by your manager, followed by HR.
Yeah. So you're covering all your bases when you do that. So you're emailing exactly what happened, okay, whatever it is. And then you're emailing your manager so that your manager is aware and that they are aware that you are aware. And then and then following up by putting in that HR piece so that everybody that plays a role in your corporate life and what happens to you in corporate America, so whether or not you have a job or not, is notified, right? So you have actually by putting those three emails into play, you have covered your bases by informing everybody that's involved. It is a time consuming process. I'm not going to say that it isn't. However, it is probably the one thing that will protect you. And it is the one thing by putting those three emails in place and continuing the process that determines whether or not you get a severance or you walk out that door with nothing.
Right, right. Great segue into severance and legal leverage here. So, how many days do you legally have to review a severance package in general? And if you're over the age of 40, do you have additional time if you're over a certain age, or is it the same time frame for anybody receiving a severance package?
That's a good question. Under 40, I think it's 7 days, but don't hold me to that. I know more about over 40. So over the age of 40, you get 21 days. 21 days to review that package. Now they will want you to sign it immediately and they'll tell you that you have to sign it immediately or you won't get your pay on time and you won't get this and you won't get that. Those are all idle threats because legally if you're over 40 years of age and you are being laid off as a single person, so just not in a mass layoff because the rules are different with that. If you are just being laid off separating from the company, then you have 21 days to sign that document. And so the first thing I would do is grab that document and take it to a lawyer.
Take it to an attorney to review it, right?
Yes,
A lot of times
absolutely.
when you do that, there's a segue then where they'll give you additional time, they'll give you more pay, additional pay, so forth, right?
That is correct, because a lot of times severance is just, it may be, they know walking in. I can tell you that most corporations, when you walk in, they hand you a severance package, they know that most likely you are not going to negotiate. But if you do negotiate, they've got backup there that they know that they may have to give you more money. So there's always a little bit of room for play in there, and it is, in my opinion, it is very um, it's worth going in and having that conversation. Corporate America bases everything on fear of your job, fear that we're going to, take your insurance, everything away from you. So if you just push that fear out and educate yourself on what you can do,
Mm-hmm.
especially with the severance, you can actually negotiate a much better deal, including healthcare, including non-disparagement agreements, including what goes in your file, what doesn't go in your file, what they can say when somebody calls and does an employment check. So there's a lot of things that can be included in your severance if you know what you need to put in there.
With these severance agreements, a lot of times there's certain information that can really sabotage future employment, non-competes and so forth, where it can really impair you to make a living, to support your family and so forth. So, what are some of the clauses that we should be looking for to avoid that?
Well, you want to make sure always that they don't put anything in there that has anything that says that you can't apply for unemployment. That's the first thing that you want. You should always be able to, they won't block your unemployment claims. Now, they're going to say,
Can
well,
they
we're
do
giving you
that if they're the
severance.
ones getting rid of you?
Yep, they can. You can have something in your severance, because I signed one and I learned this the hard way,
Oh,
and
wow.
I could not apply for unemployment. So they can do that. Another thing is about the non-disparagement agreement. Usually it will be one-sided in the original severance. So in the original severance documents, it'll say you cannot say anything bad about the company, but it doesn't ever say they can't say anything bad about you. So you want to make sure that that is a mutual non-disparagement clause that's added into that. You also want to make sure that they cover your health insurance. You've worked hard in your life. And if you're over 40, health insurance is expensive. So you want to make sure that you add that into your agreement. Another thing that you might want to put in there is, let's see, non-disparagement. And then specifically, you can put in there what can be said about a neutral reference. So if someone calls about you and calls them for an employment reference, they can only just give. They'll say that they're only going to give, your age, whatever the legal things that they can give. That yes, you worked here from this date to that date, not your age. I'm sorry, but oftentimes if you don't have it in your severance agreement, they can say whatever they want when they call, and some companies will. They'll put it in your file. So that non-disparagement, the neutral reference letter, those are very important and the unemployment, very, very important in your agreement. And then the non-compete, that's also negotiable. So if somebody says, you can't compete with our competitors, you can't do this, you can't take clients, you can't go work for somebody else. That's all negotiable. If you've gotten to the point where you're negotiating your severance, you can negotiate that too.
Right, right. And of course, all of this, we're doing this with an attorney that's backing all of our claims up. Um, Staying unemployed and insurance is brutal out there, right? I know that Cobra is super expensive, and a lot of people can't even afford it, but that's the option that you have on the table once they do lay you off, and now you're no longer employed by them. So you talk about not rushing into signing up for Cobra. So what do we do then if we're in need of our health care because we're sick, we have an ailment?
Well, you have 60 days to sign up for Cobra. And if you are not sick during that 60 days, you don't have to sign up. It is retroactive. So the minute that you sign up, you're covered. Okay, back to the date that you were laid off. So if you don't need it during that time period, you don't have to have it. I mean, you don't have to sign up for it. Another thing, you can also negotiate that they make that COBRA payment in your severance. And that is something that I would also do for 6 months to a year or whatever it is. They can actually, you can make them pay that severance, or you can ask them to pay that severance, or that COBRA payment. Now they'll give it to you in a lump sum, but it's the amount of money that would go
But they'll
towards your
pay
But
for
they'll
it.
pay
They'll
for it.
cover
Yeah,
it.
they'll cover
Okay.
it. Yeah. Also, if you go out into the healthcare.govs, there are a lot of insurance plans, and I know this is changing every day, but there
Yeah.
is a lot out there that you might be able to find something that's actually cheaper for you that gets you through a period of time, especially if you're younger and you're healthier, then you don't necessarily need the other the extended health care that some of us need, then you can find a reasonable plan out there sometimes on healthcare.gov. But the one thing about Cobra is that 60 days. You've got that 60 days, take it. If you don't need it, don't pay it right away. The minute you pay, it goes retroactive. So if you don't take it within the first 60 days, then it's gone. But if you take it any day up to those 60 days, then you've got the ability to you're covered all the way through.
Yeah, the bottom line is, when that does happen to someone, you are in such an emotional kind of like downward spiraled state of mind at that point,
Mhm.
thinking of everything, right? Like you have all these stages that you go through at first, maybe at first you feel a certain amount of relief because you hate your job. You're just like, thank God I'm out. But then by week 3, you're panicking now because you can't find work because everything is so difficult out there right now, especially right now with AI and the elimination of so many jobs that we continue to hear about, and how that's going to affect us as we continue to age. And the economy is certainly not allowing us to be able to retire, right? Like this is a fact of what's happening today with the inflation and just prices and homes and food. People are going to have to be working till they're 80 years old in this economy.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
So, how is AI from your perspective with what you're seeing eliminating jobs, and which jobs are those?
I think your more repetitive jobs can be eliminated with AI. But here's the thing with AI that most people don't recognize: AI is being used as an excuse to lower wages, it is resetting what we're getting paid, and that's all the way from CEOs down. So it's not just the people that are on the lower end of the salary ranges. What corporations are doing is saying, "Oh, we can handle that with AI, so we're going to use AI," which isn't necessarily true, right? AI is very buggy. It's got a lot of issues with it. There's a lot that's going on with AI today that it's being used as a tool for corporate America to say, "Okay, we're going to say it's AI, but it's really not AI. We're just going to drive those salaries down, hire less people, and still do the same job and not use AI in many ways." Then there's other ways where AI is going to absolutely change the landscape with the way that we work. And my personal belief is that every person should be learning how to use AI to their advantage. So what I mean by that is, if you are a person that is working as let's say, a technical consultant or something along those lines, you should be able to leverage AI to be able to help you move faster and more efficiently and be much more agile in your work. Everyone should be using AI in that capacity.
Yeah.
That's what corporate America is doing with AI. If they're doing anything with AI, that's what they're doing. They're using it to be more agile and move faster, but they still need human beings. So the whole AI is taking your job thing is really a myth.
How can people use AI then toward their advantage instead of, right, being scared of AI, utilizing it? I know that I'm one of those people that I am trying to be friends with AI, right? Like I'm trying to use it. I find it helpful. The world is moving at a very fast pace today, and it helps me kind of try to keep up, right? So how can people over the age of 40 use AI to kind of like compete then with the younger generation?
So if you're a person over 40 that needs to move faster, or let's just say in your job today, it depends on your company policy as to whether or not you can use AI at all. But let's just say that you need to write an email to and it's an uncomfortable, you're a manager and you need to write an email, and it's an uncomfortable email to an employee about something that maybe happened, right? And you agonize. I know that I did when I was working in this capacity. I would agonize for 2 hours over how to write that email, right?
Oh yeah.
When you can literally just put in the, and this is just a really simple thing, but you can literally have, there's three AI tools that I would use. That would be either Claude, Perplexity, or Chat GPT. And I don't think you need any other ones. Those are the three that I would use. And I think what I would do is I would now give the put it into Chat or Claude, depending on which one you're using, and have it help you write that email. So I have this situation going on. I need to write this in the most human, clear form. You can have it help you write that. So that's just using the prompts itself. But you can build GPTs now. You can do projects. There's all kinds of things that you can do to make your life much easier
Sure.
as an employee, but also as a business owner, especially if you're going down the road of doing fractional or consulting type work.
I think that the main understanding with for example, I use ChatGPT is really getting it to understand your personality, the way that you express yourself, the way that you speak, right? Kind of like that cadence that you have. And really give it that detail. Like this is what I'm looking for and break that down like if it's a little 5-year-old baby, you know? And they will give you back and then you kind of mold it a little bit and personalize it and give it that kind of human touch. But it's definitely an assistance where if you're having one of those days where your brain's just not working because you're on overload and you're burnt out, ChatGPT is going to get that email out for you, and you're still going to be able to follow through with all of your work obligations, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's just one thing. I mean, you can build the GPTs to have it remember everything about you, your business, you can upload files and have it remember and do projects. So there's a lot of things you can do with chat and Claude and AI in general that will help you be more efficient in your job and also be more efficient as a independent if that's what you decided to do.
Why are there so many fake job postings in today's world?
I think there's a lot of fake job postings for a lot of reasons. But the biggest one is that corporations and different companies are putting these job postings out there so that they can, it's almost like if you're doing a lead magnet for someone and you're collecting emails, that's what they're doing. They're collecting people. They're collecting this big, huge job pool that they can pull from. And that could be largely because they want to have a large base that they can pull from because they have high turnover. It could be that they have a large base that they want to pull from because they feel like they may be growing, but they're not really growing in that moment. So it's a security blanket for them.
Yeah,
There's a,
they can even be reselling that information at some point, right? It
right,
just like right? That's crazy.
right. That's right. So there's a lot of yeah. So there's a lot of fake job postings. Absolutely. And
I
over
hear that
40, I
I
wouldn't
hear
apply
that
for those.
all the time. Like friends that are currently unemployed and they're telling me, Monica, I have applied to 50 jobs and nobody calls me back. And I'm like, I don't understand. How could they not call you back? That's a lot of jobs, you
That's a
know?
lot of jobs.
So it's got to be fake postings for jobs. I'm sorry. They're going to call you back. If it's a real post and you're qualified, maybe if you're over a certain age, they might be a little, reluctant to calling you back. But if I were an employer, I would want to talk to you and kind of like get a feel for the market and kind of get a feel for what's out there. And hey, what are you offering as opposed to a Gen Zer? You know.
Right. Yeah. So anybody now that's looking for a job, I wouldn't go with the job. I wouldn't go to the job boards,
So
especially if
how do
you're
you
over
do it?
40.
So then how do you do it? Right now, I just got laid off. I'm in need of a job. I need to feed my family. How else do I go about looking for work then?
So the first thing you have to do is you have to lean on your network. Okay. So your network in today's day and age is huge. And if you don't have a network, then that's a bad thing. So you need to make sure that you nurture your network at all times. LinkedIn is a perfect place for those easy applies. That
Yes.
oftentimes is a ghost job. So don't bother with that. But if you can find the hiring manager, reach out to them directly. Okay.
Directly
So
send them an email. Yeah, that's
yeah,
what I would
send
do.
them an email. And then number two, instead of applying on a job, if you see a job posted out on LinkedIn or somewhere else, I would go to that company's website and see if they have the job posting there, and that's where I would apply directly. And then beyond that, I would probably, like I said, heavily rely on your network, and then reach out directly to companies. The old-fashioned way is we're moving back a little bit more to the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, yeah. let's get into Gen Z and workplace energy a little bit. We love them and we love to hate them, right? They're
Mhm.
kind of like a replacement, but they're also
Mhm.
cool, right? Because they're coming in with all this kind of like new energy and I'm all about it. I'm all about like hearing what younger people have to say, so that I can kind of stay with the trends and stay hip. So, but their mentality is very much like remote, remote, remote. I'm not going into an office if it's more than twice a week. Oh no, that's not good for my mental health and my focus. And I need my my personal time and I need to be the work-life balance, right? And it's like these are these are phrases that we have never heard of before in our lifetimes, right? Like you have a job, you're going there Monday through Friday, assuming it's a Monday through Friday job, right? 8 hours a day, your lunch is paid or not paid, right? Like this is just the way that the world has functioned for many, many years. There's a lot of flexibility that they expect also, but so the question is, are they wrong? Are they ahead of the curve? Like, should we follow their lead? Can we even compete at that point? Or is that maybe our segue? Like, hey, listen, they won't go to the office 5 days a week, but I will. And that's why you should hire me.
Right. I think you can use it in multiple ways. So, the one thing I will say about Gen Z that I have done a complete about face on is that I love their boundaries. I love the fact that they have set those boundaries. And I think they've set those boundaries by talking to my own children and other kids, at work and stuff. They've set those boundaries up because they've seen what corporate America has done to us. The Gen X, the millennials, the boomers, and how it has basically eaten us alive and taken everything we have. And then the next day, you can die today and they will have somebody in your seat tomorrow. And I think that Gen Z is seeing that as, I don't want that. I want to live. I want to live a different sort of way. So I applaud them for that, the
Yeah,
way that they do
I'm
that.
with you.
I definitely applaud them. Now, some of the things that I don't applaud them at is, I want to start at the top. So I want to be the CEO and I know more than you. And I do not give credit for, I mean, Gen Z is, I think maybe all of us have done this when we're the younger generation dealing with
It's
an older
almost like a level
generation.
of entitlement that we feel that we have at that point based on the knowledge that we believe that we have until
Right.
we actually get into that depth and we realize we don't know shit. Right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, working with Gen Z is a challenge. I mean, I've worked at companies where I have been, the oldest person in the room, and Gen Z is a different way of going. But I think there's a way to meet in the middle and to communicate
Hmm.
and to teach back and forth. It's been a challenge, though. It can be a challenge to work with that generation. But they've got some. They're helping us by
I
showing. I
agree.
think showing corporate America that they can't treat us the way that they're
By
treating us.
setting those boundaries. And, little by little, we're getting older and they're going to start taking over. And then we're going to have the next generation kind of come in with their own boundaries. So corporate's going to have to kind of acclimate to them at that point if they want to have a staff that that's going to be
That's
happy and they're going to work for you to continue to fund your payroll, right?
correct. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a balance. It's definitely a balance.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, and again, we go back to our generation and everybody's just so burnt out or was so burnt out prior to COVID, between family life and children and having to pay for babysitters and then you're in the office constantly and everything that they need from you. It's like when do you have time for yourself for that kind of like mental health balance at that point? And how many people were not like wigging out right
Right.
in our
Right.
generation,
Yeah.
so COVID definitely helped that ball game a little bit, I feel.
Yeah. I do think so too.
Yeah.
But it's shifting back, when they're using
Oh yeah.
that against us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's happening everywhere. You see it. Oh, it was, 2 days, now it's three, then it's 4 days back to work. Before you know it, we're gonna be 5 days back in the office, and if you don't like it, you can leave.
That's
You know,
right.
it's it's
That's right.
it's it's gonna be that black and white. What is Stockholm syndrome in corporate America? Can you share a little bit, like elaborate a little bit on that and what that means?
Yeah. So, in general, Stockholm syndrome in corporate America is similar to Stockholm syndrome, right? It just in general, you start defending the company that you work for and the people. It's when you see something bad happening, and that maybe you have a bad manager or you just have bad management. You just have an executive level that is just not functioning properly, and they are using you as an employee, and you start defending their behavior, and so you become this person that is somehow defending them because you don't want to lose your job. So it's the mental shift in your mind that, okay, I can't lose my job. I'm going to defend them. They need extra time to give me that promotion. All of that's happening in corporate America and it boils down to one thing. They are basically holding you hostage in that job. So your job is, in many situations, if you're in a bad situation and you're experiencing Stockholm syndrome within your corporation, then it's most likely a hostage situation where they are owning you and treating you like um, they that everything that you do is dependent on them. So that means your health insurance, your living, everything. If you don't have them, then you don't have a life. And if you don't have a life, then you can't function. So that's why Stockholm syndrome is so rampant in corporate America today, where you start defending the bad behavior.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
What do you understand? What didn't you understand at the age of 45 that you very clearly understand today at 59?
That corporate America is a fraud, and that the only person, and what I mean by that is, I don't mean every corporation's bad. I absolutely do not. There are great corporations out there. There are corporations that hire that specific, like BMW loves to work with older employees. I applaud that. So, but in general, you cannot rely on your job today like you could when we got out of World War II. It was pensions, and you got your pension at 55, and all of that. That is not what happens in corporate America today. There is no loyalty left. So the only loyalty that you have is to yourself, and you need to build something that is yours that nobody can take away from you, and that needs to be outside of corporate America. And I think if I could go back to my younger self, I would have learned that a lot earlier.
Yeah. 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 Like anything else in life, right? Experiences and the failures that take place in our life that only teaches us, and we learn from that, and we keep elevating from that mistake to not make the same mistake again, which is where you come in now with the unobsolete. Why don't you share a little bit about the advocacy that you're doing now, where you're helping so many people with this information and work, right? So many people in today's society, going back to that, people, work is bad out there right now. Companies are downsizing by the minute. The inflation is through the roof. People are living paycheck to paycheck. So they're afraid to open their mouth in the workplace because they're afraid of getting fired. This is where you come in and you help. So tell us a little bit about what you're offering, where people can contact you for further information.
Well, okay, so I built the Unobsolete basically it was kind of a sideways project for me. I just got so mad one day and I decided I was just gonna go out there and say, I'm not taking this anymore from the world. And I know there's countless people out there that are experiencing the same thing. So I started educating myself, and I had already known a lot by all the layoffs and the severances and the things that I had gone through in corporate America myself. So when I started to build the Unobsolete, it was just that, to be a person that would advocate for people that were aging in the workplace. And it's expanded a little bit because it's not just people that are aging in the workplace that are dealing with this. It's all workers. My focus is predominantly the older worker, but I do get a lot of questions from people that are younger that are going through the same thing that we are. So it's not just something that is just affecting older people, although I do think it's affecting us in larger quantities. So the Unobsolete is basically a movement that I'm trying to build, where people know that they're not alone and that we're all together in this. And I'm going to give you as much information as I possibly can on how to protect your job. But if you can't protect your job, or you don't want to protect your job, or you just feel like, after 5 layoffs, you just want to do your own thing, That's also part of it. So that helping people take the knowledge that they already have and turn that into work for them. And they can do that while they're still working for a company. So I have a soft exit plan that, a 6-month plan to help them get out. I help people with their PIPs. I help people find lawyers for severance and things, negotiations of that kind. So I will point them in the right direction. I like to speak at events and help people. So my mission is to get the word out that you are not alone, and I and others are here to help.
I love it. I love it. And yes, all the information that you're putting out there is super valuable. You definitely caught my attention with it. And I couldn't wait to get you on the podcast to share it with everyone else. How can people reach you, Jen?
So my email, you can reach me at my email, which is jen at the unobsolete.com. But you can also find me on TikTok
Mm-hmm.
at the unobsolete, and you can find me on LinkedIn. And then, of course, we have a course. The Unobsolete is currently down the website, but you can reach us at our stand store. So we do have a stand store, which is also called the Unobsolete, which
Okay.
all our course offerings are.
If you can do me a favor and just text me all of the different links
You
for
bet.
when everyone, and what I'll do is when I post this will be up on YouTube. I'll put this in the comment section just so that it's easier for everyone to reach you. That's needing a little bit of help right now, you know?
Awesome. That's
So
great.
thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today, Jen. I really appreciate it. Great information. Good to know. Good stuff to know. Great information. Keep doing that. Okay, keep helping others with this because it's ugly out there right now, girl. It's ugly.
It is ugly out there. You're right. You're right. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
No, this was awesome. Thank you so much. Have the great rest of the day.
Thanks. You too.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye.